Hi, I'm Krista, and I'm one of the co-founders of Objects in Order. And in this guide, I'll introduce you to blueprints. A blueprint is a custom data form for your objects. And with blueprints, you can add and organize data for any type of object or project in a way that makes sense for you and your team using your own terminology and your own institutional standards. And best of all, blueprints are flexible and simple to update whether you are adding, editing, or deleting fields. So, what are blueprints? Think of them as custom forms with custom data fields. They allow you to set up data structures for your objects. And blueprints are really at the heart of Objects and Orders flexibility. You can create and customize blueprints for types of objects, like paintings or ceramics. You can set up blueprints for exhibitions, for projects with objects, and groups of objects. And when you set up a blueprint, you're setting up the custom fields for information that will be entered at the object level. The first step in setting up your blueprints is to create the core blueprint. Your core blueprint is the foundation upon which all your other blueprints will be built. So you start by asking yourself, what information do I want to document for every single object in my collection? So if all your objects have an accession number and all your objects are always going to have a description, you can add those fields to your core blueprints. And then once those are added, they'll be included in any other blueprint that you create. Now, your core blueprint can be as simple or as detailed as you like, one field or 30. And at minimum, it's always going to include the title field. So let's add some fields to the core blueprint. And there are two ways to do this. Here at the left, you'll see the Fields tab, and below we have options for types and for presets. Now, under types, you're going to see all the available field types, and you can click a field type like short text here to add it to your blueprint, and it's going to appear at the end. And next, we're going to click on the field that we just added and start customizing. So the first thing that you're going to do is give it a label. So for this short text field, we are calling this field date. So that's what we've added to the label. You always have the option to go back and change the field type. So if you added it as a short text type, but you decide you want long text or rich text or a select field, you can always make that change. You also have your options here, whether or not the data for this object is going to be required. You can toggle that on, whether or not it's going to be locked, and we'll talk about that in just a second, and whether or not the information is going to be internal only. And so what this means is that if you toggle on internal, that data is not going to be available as an option to be used in exhibitions or modules. And then you also have the option here to add helpful data entry notes. So you can mention formatting details or leave notes for the people that are actually going to be entering the object information. Now, when you add a field, you're going to select a field type. And so these are going to determine the type of information that you'll be entering for your objects. So we just saw a short text field. We won't go through all of the field types in this video, but you can learn more about the available field types in the two guides that we've linked below this video. All right, next we're going to take a look at presets. So again, we're on the left here, and under presets, you're going to see your ready-made field options. You just click the field, and it's going to add it to your blueprint here again at the end. And so presets include things that are commonly used in describing objects like artist, creator, credit line, date, description, location, and we'll also mention that fields that correspond to the Dublin Core metadata element set are marked with Dublin Core, so that makes it really easy for you to find. And so here we've added an artist field. We've made it a short text field type. And once you have used a preset, it's going to be grayed out in the list. You can reorder your fields using drag and drop. You can also reorder entire rows by using the dragger icon that's going to appear on hover. So it's a very nice way to set these forms up exactly the way that you want to see your information. And then later, if you change your mind or if you add something, you can always move your informational fields around. All right, let's talk a little bit about adding additional blueprints. So once you've set up your core, you can start creating blueprints for your types of objects, for exhibitions, for projects, and for groups. And then remember that any new blueprint that you create is going to already contain those fields from the core blueprint. All right, so here is a look just at some of the blueprints that we've created in our sample base, the Museum of Objects. So we set up our core blueprint, and then we have photographs and prints under our object types. And then we have an exhibition right here, Rembrandt and the Art of Etching. You can always go up here to add and create a new blueprint by clicking the plus icon. And then you'll have the option of deciding whether or not it's an object exhibition, project, or group. When you do create a new blueprint, you also do have the option to start with a template. So here we're using an object type blueprint, paintings, and we're going to start with our artwork template. There's also a template for non-art objects and for exhibitions. All right. And then once you add your new blueprint, so this is our paintings blueprint, you can go to settings here and you can add a description. So this is a really helpful way of for multiple users of a blueprint to have a description of what is going to be included here. All right, so for each of the blueprints that you create, you can add, customize, and update your fields, and you can change the blueprints as your needs evolve. So, for example, if you're working with a paintings blueprint, you might have fields for frame information. A prints blueprint might have fields for printmaker and state. For photographs, you might have negative date and photographer. And a portraiture exhibition blueprint, you might have the sitter name and the object label text. So, a few things just to mention about how the fields are going to display when you add them to your blueprint. You'll see that your core field here is indicated, and also core fields are going to display a padlock. So, if you ever need to update these fields, you're going to need to go back to your core blueprint to do that. You can edit your single fields by clicking the ellipsis icon here. Again, you can drag and drop your rows using the dragger here that will appear on the hover. And you can reorder your fields by drag and drop. So you're just setting it up in the way that you want to see it. Let's take a quick look at our options for a blueprint. So we're going to go to our action menu here at right, and you'll see a few options in the drop down. The first is that you can duplicate a blueprint. So this is a really nice way to keep working with the fields that you've added, but then you can duplicate for something new and add the fields that you need for that purpose. You can also download a CSV template that's going to give you all of the column headings according to your fields here, which you can use to upload object information as a CSV. You can also download the JSON structure for your blueprints. And then if no objects are using this particular blueprint, you have the option to delete it. All right, so when you add an object to your base, so we have an object here, we're going to add one more object. You're going to provide the title, and then you are going to be choosing a primary blueprint and then clicking Add. Right, when you are in the object, you'll see the blueprint indicated here. You'll see the primary blueprint indicated with a star. So this is always a painting. So paintings is our primary blueprint for this work, but then it might be a part of exhibitions or groups or projects, and then you can create secondary blueprints. So that's what you're seeing here indicated by the check mark. You can expand the list to see all of the other blueprints that are available in your base. And then if you want to change that primary blueprint, you just click the star of another blueprint. Or if you want to add additional secondary blueprints, you're just clicking that blue check mark. Now, after you have entered data in a field like accession number or dimensions, you can actually go back to your blueprints and you can lock that field so that no additional information can be entered for that particular element. So, if you've entered all your accession numbers, you can lock this field and then no one could accidentally change an accession number. And then we'll show you what that looks like. So here, our accession number is going to be grayed out. You're going to see the padlock so that no further data entry can happen there unless you go back and unlock that field. And then, if you do need to update a blueprint for a large selection of objects or a small selection of objects from your objects page, You can select a group of objects just by clicking the check mark in the upper left-hand corner. And then from the action menu here, you can update your blueprints. So you have the option to change the primary blueprints or add secondary blueprints. And then you'll be able to access the drop-down list of all your available blueprints. And this is really handy when you've created an exhibition blueprint and you want to add it as a secondary blueprint for a group of objects. Well, that is our introduction to blueprints. And with blueprints, you and your team can structure and prioritize the data that matters to you. If you would like to discuss blueprint strategies, if you have any questions at all about how you set up blueprints, you can definitely get in touch with us from our website. We would love to help. We'll include the link below the video. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.